You guys asked for it, and it's here. We're doing a deep dive into the science of happiness. Honestly, getting ready for this one had me super curious. Like, did you know there's a whole area of research dedicated to happiness? It's called positive psychology.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating field. For a long time, psychology focused mostly on what's wrong with us, trying to fix problems. But positive psychology flips that on its head.
I love that.
It's all about figuring out what makes life worth living, what helps us thrive,
Hmm.
what makes us resilient.
Yeah, okay, I'm here for it. So where do we even begin with this? Like, what is happiness?
That is the million-dollar question, right?
Right.
And it's actually more than just a fleeting feeling.
Okay.
Researchers call it subjective well-being, which basically means it encompasses your overall experience of life.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about that. Subjective well-being.
So it's like, imagine happiness has two main parts. So first you have your emotional state. Like, how often do you experience those positive emotions like joy or contentment or peace?
So like those little everyday moments that just like make you feel good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then there's the second part, which is just as important, and that's your overall life satisfaction.
Okay.
So it's like, how content are you with your life, as a whole?
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're moving in the right direction? Do you feel like you're living in alignment with your values?
It's so interesting because it's like, it's not enough to just have those happy moments. You need that deeper sense of like, yeah, my life is good.
Yes, you got it. It's like finding that sweet spot where you
Wow.
have those moments of joy, but you're also feeling good about the big picture.
Totally. So now I'm curious, like, what actually determines our happiness? Is it like set in stone by our genes, or do we have more control over it than we think?
Ooh. Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. Scientists have actually come up with something called the happiness formula.
Okay.
Now, don't worry, it's not a scary equation or anything. Just picture a pie chart,
Right.
right? That represents 100% of your happiness.
Okay, got it.
Okay. About 50% of that pie is your genetics. This is your kind of baseline happiness, like a set point that you tend to return to naturally.
Okay, so some of us are just kind of wired to be a bit more optimistic, and others maybe a little more pessimistic.
Yeah, exactly. And then about 10% of your happiness, that comes from your life circumstances.
Okay.
Things like your income, your health, your relationships, even the neighborhood you live in, all those external factors.
Okay, so those definitely matter, but it's interesting to me that that's a relatively small slice of the pie.
Yeah, and that's actually good news
Yeah.
because that means you have the power to control a much larger portion.
Okay, I'm listening.
40%, a whole 40% of your happiness is determined by things within your control.
Whoa, 40%, that's huge.
I know, right? It's your thoughts, your behaviors, your habits, that's all you.
So even if we're dealing with a slightly gloomier disposition or we're facing some tough times, we still have a say in how happy we are.
Exactly. And that's super empowering, right? Because it means that happiness isn't this elusive thing. It's not a lottery ticket. It's something that you can cultivate by taking action.
Love it. Okay, but how do we tap into that 40%? Where do we even start?
Okay, well, first, I'm going to tell you to forget what you see on social media.
Okay.
Because real lasting happiness, it doesn't come from just having more things or chasing those fleeting pleasures.
It's funny you say that because it's like we're constantly bombarded with images of, happiness is this vacation or happiness is this car.
It's true. But science tells a different story. One of the most powerful factors is actually way simpler, and it's strong social connections.
Oh, I've heard that's so important. So it's not about how many Facebook friends you have. It's the quality of those real life connections,
You've
right?
got it. We're talking those close, supportive relationships, family, friends, romantic partners, even close in communities, feeling truly seen and understood and loved by others. That's powerful.
Makes so much sense why loneliness can be so tough on us. We're social creatures. It's in our DNA.
Exactly. And those bonds, they act like a buffer. They help
Yeah.
you deal with stress, they make you more resilient, and can even lead to better physical health.
It's like having a team of cheerleaders in your corner.
Exactly.
I love that. Okay, so cultivating those connections, that's definitely going on my happiness to-do list.
It's a good one.
What else you got?
Well, have you ever noticed how good it feels to be grateful?
Oh, 100%. But I'll admit, I often forget to just like pause and appreciate the good things. You know how it is, life gets busy.
Absolutely. But what if I told you that practicing gratitude more often can actually make you happier?
Really?
I know it sounds too good to be true, but it's not just good manners, it's backed by science.
Okay, no way. So like, It actually changes our brains.
It really does.
Yeah.
Studies have shown that when you focus on what you're grateful for, it can actually rewire your brain to become more optimistic, more appreciative.
Wow, that's wild. So just by shifting our attention to the positive, we can train our brains for greater happiness.
Exactly. It's like working a muscle. The more you practice gratitude, the easier it is to access those positive emotions.
So cool.
Right. And get this, it can help you sleep better. It can lower your stress levels. You can even become more resilient. Oh, and happier, obviously.
This is blowing my mind. So happiness isn't about chasing pleasure. It's about savoring those small moments of connection and appreciation.
You're getting it.
And purpose.
Oh, yes. Speaking of purpose,
Don't leave me hanging.
think about a time when you felt truly alive, full of energy. What was it about that moment that made you feel that way?
It's interesting because it feels bigger than just happiness. It's like knowing that your life has meaning, like you're making a difference.
You're spot on. It's about aligning your actions with your values, going after your passions, using your unique talents and strengths to make the world a better place.
This reminds me of Viktor Frankl. He talked about the importance of finding meaning, even in the darkest times.
Exactly. Yeah. Frankl truly believed that humans have this deep-down need to find meaning and purpose no matter what. And for him, it was that sense of purpose that helped him and so many others through unimaginable hardships.
That's incredibly powerful.
And you know what? Research has found a direct link between living a purpose-driven life and being happier. And not only that, people who live with purpose tend to live longer too. When you feel like your life has meaning, you unlock this well of resilience and motivation and joy.
This is amazing. I love it. Okay, so we've got those strong social connections, gratitude, and purpose. What other happiness tools can we add to our kit? It's kind of funny, right? Like, we talk about happiness all the time, but it can feel kind of impossible to actually reach. Like, are we supposed to be striving for this blissful state 24/7?
Right. That's such a common misconception. And honestly, can you imagine? It would be exhausting to try to be happy all the time. It reminds me of the study, actually. It was done by Iris Mouse. She's a researcher at UC Berkeley.
Oh.
And they found that the more people valued happiness, the less likely they actually were to feel happy, especially when they were going through tough times.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
That's so interesting. So it's like almost counterproductive. The more you chase it, the more it backfires. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's like you're putting all this pressure on yourself, right, to feel a certain way, even when life is predictably unpredictable.
Exactly.
It's inevitable, right? Life throws curveballs.
Yeah.
But if you're always trying to force happiness, and then you meet those expectations, you end up feeling even worse.
Yeah. It's like those picture-perfect highlight reels we see all the time on social media.
Yes.
It sets such an unrealistic standard for how we're supposed to feel.
Exactly. The truth is, life is messy, right? It's unpredictable. And so we're going to feel a whole range of emotions: joy, sadness, anger, frustration. Everything's all part of the human experience.
So true. Okay, so then how do we make peace with that? How do we acknowledge and process those difficult emotions without letting them, take over?
That's where those happiness habits we were talking about come in. Remember how important strong social connections are?
Yeah.
Those relationships can really provide a safe and supportive space to work through those tough emotions.
So it's like having that support network to help you through it.
Yes, exactly. When you have people you trust, you can confide in them. They can offer a listening ear or a shoulder to cry on. This makes a huge difference.
Totally. Okay, what about gratitude? How does that play into navigating those emotional ups and downs?
Gratitude is so powerful even when things feel really, really tough. Remember we talked about how it can actually rewire your brain for more positivity?
Yeah.
Well, that positivity bias can be huge when you're struggling.
So even when things are difficult, you're still training your brain to seek out those glimmers of good.
Yes. It's all about shifting your perspective, even if just for a few minutes a day. You can intentionally look for those things you're grateful for, even small things.
I've actually been trying out that gratitude journaling we talked about, and I gotta say, it's really helped me to reframe even small, annoying things.
I love that.
Like, I used to get so stressed in traffic, but now I find myself appreciating the podcast I'm listening to or noticing the scenery.
That's amazing. You're literally experiencing the power of gratitude firsthand. It's incredible, right?
It really is.
Even in the middle of challenges, there's always something to appreciate. And just that little shift can make such a big difference in how those challenges impact you.
So I'm sensing a theme here. It's not about, like, getting rid of negative emotions completely. It's about learning to manage them in a healthy way.
Exactly. Exactly. Finding that balance, right? It's okay to acknowledge the difficult emotions, process them, without letting them control your overall well-being.
Right.
And one of the most effective ways to do this is through mindfulness.
Mindfulness. Okay, I'll admit, I'm a little fuzzy on what that actually means in practice. Is it basically just meditation?
It's definitely related. And people practice mindfulness through meditation a lot, but it's really about training your attention. You can think of your mind like a puppy.
Okay.
It's easily distracted, right? Constantly running off in a million directions.
Oh, okay, that is both hilarious and so accurate. My mind is definitely a puppy on overdrive sometimes.
Right. Well, mindfulness is about gently guiding that puppy back to the present moment. It's about noticing your thoughts and your feelings and your physical sensations without judgment.
Oh, okay. So instead of getting totally swept away in those thoughts and worries, we can learn to observe them without being totally consumed by them.
Yes. And the research on mindfulness is really amazing. It can actually reduce stress, help you focus better. It can even boost your compassion.
Wow, that's impressive. But how do you actually can you practice mindfulness anytime, anywhere?
Absolutely. You don't need anything special or even a lot of time. One of the simplest ways is to just focus on your breath. Have you ever tried that?
I've dabbled in it, but to be honest, I have a hard time quieting my mind.
That's totally normal. Our minds are wired to think, right? Don't judge yourself or get frustrated. Just gently redirect your attention back to your breath. Like that puppy, remember? Just keep bringing it back to the present moment.
After a brief pause, that's actually really relaxing. I can feel my shoulders relaxing already.
Right. It's kind of amazing what a few deep breaths can do. And it really does get easier with practice. You learn to tap into that calmness even when you're not formally meditating.
I am adding this to my routine. This whole deep dive has given me so many practical tools. It's funny. I feel like we so often think of happiness as something that just happens to us. Like we win the lottery or something. But the more we talk about this, the more I'm realizing it's really an inside job, isn't it?
Yes, 100%. It's not about waiting around for everything to be perfect in your life.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating the tools and mindsets and habits that'll help you experience more joy no matter what's going on around you.
It's like we're building our own little happiness toolkit.
I love that. And like any skill, it takes practice and patience. And, what works for one person might not work for someone else. It's about finding what works for you.
So true. Now, speaking of things that bring us joy, we talked earlier about how acts of kindness can actually make us happier. And I'll be honest, I hadn't really thought of it that way before.
It does seem kind of counterintuitive, right? Like you would think focusing on yourself is the key to happiness.
Right.
But actually, there's something really beautiful about the interconnectedness of it all.
Tell me more about that. What do you mean?
Well, think about it. When you help someone else, even if it's just a small gesture, it creates this ripple effect of positivity.
Right.
Not only are you making their day a little bit better, but you also get to experience that warm feeling of making a difference.
It's like that saying, it's better to give than to receive, but it's actually true.
It is. And science backs it up, too. Did you know that studies have shown that being kind actually releases endorphins in your brain?
Oh, wow. So it's like a natural high.
Exactly. Endorphins, those are the feel-good chemicals that boost your mood, and they can even help relieve pain.
I'm here for it. So what are some ways we can incorporate more kindness into our daily lives?
Oh my gosh, the possibilities are endless. And honestly, it doesn't have to be anything huge or time-consuming.
Okay, good.
It could be something as small as giving a genuine compliment to a stranger, or leaving a nice note for a coworker, or even just donating to a cause you really believe in.
I love those ideas. Small acts can make a big difference.
Absolutely. And, sometimes even just a shift in perspective can be an act of kindness in itself. Like, let's say you're feeling frustrated with someone, right? Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe they're just wired differently.
That's such a good point. It's so easy to forget that everyone's fighting their own battles.
Right. So when you approach people with empathy and understanding, you're not only brightening their day, but also helping yourself cultivate a more compassionate, forgiving heart.
So it really is a win-win.
Exactly.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. As we wrap up here, is there one key takeaway you hope our listeners will remember from this conversation?
If there's one thing I want to emphasize, it's that Happiness isn't this finish line you cross.
Hmm.
It's not a trophy you hold up and you're done. It's a journey.
I love that.
It's about embracing all of it, the ups and downs, the highs and lows, because those are what make life interesting. And just remembering that you have the power to cultivate more happiness, more purpose, more joy.
What a beautiful thought to end on. So to our listeners, you're not alone on this journey. We're all figuring it out as we go. And be kind to yourself along the way. You've got this.